Hi Anne, this is Rebecca with your Assignment 1 critique. Great job completely changing the context of these original images. I really love that you used your own personal photography as added elements to change the context. I think that was really successful and really smart, and it was great for us to get to see some of your work that way as well. So in this first image, when I first saw it, I thought that the building in the background was actually part of the original image with the little girl. And then I realized by the way that she was lit and kind of posed that she was shot in a studio. And then I was like, oh, okay, so congratulations on completely tricking me. So um, once I read your description for the piece and talking about the juxtaposition between the Victoria's Secret model and her sexiness, or even Victoria's Secret's sexiness in general, across the street from this building where, under low income elders are living, it was just totally changed the context even more for me as a viewer. So it's really interesting how sometimes when you read a description for a piece of art, how that'll totally change what you were originally seeing in the piece. And sometimes it clears it up, sometimes it adds more to it, and sometimes it just completely flips your original thought upside down. So great work there. The only places for improvement that I can see are just a little more contrast in these images. Part of it has to do with working with reflections in windows in black and white. A lot of times when you work with reflections, part of it can get really grayed out, and that is what happened with the background, the building. So your Victoria's Secrets model has some nice contrast. I can see some dark blacks there and some bright white highlights in her nose and her lips, but the building behind her is so grayed out, and it's such a large part of the image that it's really flattening the whole thing out a little bit. So I recommend pulling up the contrast even more. And what I would do is use the levels adjustment layer and pull the white slider to the right a little bit more to see the sky get brighter, and you might even get some more highlights coming out up here in the building. Be careful. I know that you could potentially get a ton of blowout here in the bridge of her nose and around here, and you don't want to do that because it could distract from the little girl, but adding more white to that background is going to help a lot. If you do that and you notice that your blacks are not looking as rich, then also take the black slider in the levels panel, same adjustment layer, and pull the black slider to the right a little bit, just a little bit, and you'll see your blacks get deeper and richer, and you'll see the whole image get more three-dimensional. You'll also then need to make her a little bit more contrasty as well, because she'll start to look too grayed out. So right now I don't see any true whites in her, so she could use a bump in contrast. So use the same thing, the levels adjustment layer, pull your whites over, and then if you see that your darks in the shadows here aren't black anymore, then pull your black slider over too, and it'll change the whole image a lot for the better. The other thing is you could apply some hand coloring if you felt like something was competing for the eye that you didn't want to, and so you wanted to draw the viewer back to something specific in the image. Hand coloring is a good way to do that, but it's only if you decide after changing the contrast a little bit more if that's something that you want to do as the artist. I don't think it necessarily needs it, but if you want to do it, you can do it. On the second image, I'm only going to critique 2 images because that's what the assignment called for, and I chose this image because this one felt a little more finished to me than the other image that you submitted. And I read your description for this, but when I was looking at this, I just love how abstract it is and how you just went wild on this image. You just let your creativity flow, and you did a lot of great experimenting. I love all the lines in the hair and just fun you had with this, and the collage element of it. There's not really much seamless editing going on in here, but that's okay because the collage is totally working because everything is so different in the image. And I just keep looking at it wondering what the relationship is between these 3 people, and my mind does not stop trying to figure out what's going on in this image, and that's a good thing. So I think it's really cool that you just went to town on this one and just did whatever you could to um, to experiment. What I really love is the color balance in this image is really successful. All these golds over here, bouncing off of the golds down here, and even pulling your eye up into the golds up here, and then back into the golds in the lapel. So it pulls your eye all around the canvas, so you explore the whole thing over and over again. And also the whole overall color palette is really nice with the reds and the golds and and black. So that's really cool. The only thing that I would recommend doing here is pulling the contrast up in him. I would like to see some darker blacks appear in some of his shadow areas, only because of how dark this whole side of the canvas is, and then this up here in this kind of vignetting. He just starts getting a little washed out, and obviously he's a prominent figure because he's standing in front of everything. So I think he deserves just a tad more contrast to just, really finish this piece off. But overall, this was some fantastic work. I love this experimenting. I love your strong concepts. Keep all of it up because you're doing great.